Okay, so now I just want to show you the conversion to a console program. Um, it's really very minimal. I'm going to go up here, take out the hello world that automatically gets stuck in every time you start a console program. Um, so the first thing you have to do is you have to go to your project thing and add the existing items. Okay, so existing item from any other class that you want to be using. If you're using class libraries, if you know what those are, um, they're um, pre-compiled items that you can add in. I don't want to go into that right now. That's another whole topic. Um, but you add in the user interface class, do your interfaces first, so capital I state, and then use your class. It's just good form. It shouldn't make a difference, but never trust a compiler. And so then once they're in here, obviously they look the same as they did before, but do notice that the namespace here is interfaces, whereas my project name here, let me go back to where I was, is named Program for Interfaces Console. You'll see it right here, it's just under the tabs. Those aren't the same, and they need to either match or they need to be specified. So when I include user interface class, I need to specify interface dot user interface class. Just like when we're doing console items, when we say console dot write line, okay, they're not in the same um, namespace, so you have to specify. So um, and the reason they're in a different reason with console, the reason why WriteLine is not in the same namespace is because you use WriteLine in file handling. So it's separated out. Okay, so anyway, so you start off, program is where your program is, it's where main is. Okay, so essentially in the older compilers it would say static void main, and then come in and you would put your code, and the code here would be interface dot user interface class, UI class, and then my variable is u, again just like more or less it was before. New user or interfaces dot UI class. Then I'm using two for eaches, one to print out the state and the capitals. Okay, so I say string in u dot populate state, print out each one of those. I draw a line, and then um, string two in u dot populate capital. And if you're wondering, no, because this has to be S1 and S2, because um, if you try to use these together within the same method, the compiler gets very, very upset. So again, the interfaces look the same. Boring, boring. And the user interface class, UI class, looks the same. The only uh, thing that is really different is that this namespace is interfaces, And so when you specify it in your program, you have to specify interfaces dot user interface class. Okay. There is another way to do this, as I said before, so that you don't have to specify interfaces. You can create a system dot interfaces type of thing. The problem is you have to go through a few hoops to do that. That involves using a class library, and that involves running through a few hoops. It's not huge of a deal. In fact, it's very handy because then you can just include everything all at once that you want in your program. But it also has the ramification of having to go through some steps in the compiler. Okay, so that's it for this. It helps you compare what you're doing, but again, here, everything here is, this is the class declaration. All of this is user interface. Okay, it's not a graphical user interface, but this is all related to writing information out to the console, which is the user interface in a console application. We want, ideally, to separate everything from the user interface into something else. So in this particular case, this come on, cooperate over here. There we go. User interface class provides us all of the processing that we do. Populate capital, populate state. It provides us all of the processing that we'll do when we use the actual interface. Okay, so just to remind you, when we, let's close this. When we, no, that's, is that it? No, that's not it. Oh, I opened the wrong thing. Here, there we go. There. When we were doing the form and the GUI, this was basically what the main portion of the other one was. We opened up the class. We didn't have to say interfaces class. We could, but it's already interfaces here. Then we did these two things, which was the equivalent of the for each loops. We used the populate command, the one for state, one for capital, added everything into add range, which was in for the list box. Now I could have done it with a with a for each loop. Okay, so just as an example, for each string s1 in u dot populate state is it going to complain about that? second. I know what's wrong. And then turn around and say LSB state dot items dot add S1. Okay, and it would have done the same thing. Okay, so you can compare those. Oops. You can compare those two items. I just chose to use add range to save a little bit of a step there. But you can compare this to the console and see that this is really not different. This sends stuff through to the list box like a write line would. Okay, except that in console there is no list box. It's just a different place of writing a line. Okay, so it's not a big deal. Okay, so hopefully this helps you understand this a little better. And again, interfaces, I hear the word contract bandied around, and I sort of understand that. When you do this, this is the contract between this and this, and that's fine, but to me this is just a superficial, nothing more than a superficial template for the class, and then the class has to go ahead and implement it. Now the benefit again is simply that you can implement it however you want, so long as it meets this stringent little thing up at the top. Beyond that, you can do it however you want. Okay. If you had, say for instance, an interface thing which was knob and one for slider, you could potentially implement each of those and make them work in one way in one program and another way in another program, depending on the implementation. Okay, so that's enough of me babbling. Close. There it is. If you have questions, you can find me in the discussion. It's a little hard for me to find things in the discussion. I try to go through the discussions every day. If you have a question that is more immediate and you need to ask, you can go to the top. Well, go to the inbox. It sounds stupid, but go to the inbox, and then up at the top there's a thing, I don't know, roughly around the middle, maybe a little over farther, and you can click it and you can send me email through there. Even though it's in the inbox, it's the way to send mail also. I know that took me a hot minute. I had to ask, where do I send mail? And I said, oh, you just go to the inbox. I'm like, right, okay.